to Revenge with Lyra.
When I collapsed at work, clutching my chest, the doctors called my parents. They never came. Instead, my brother tagged me in a photo. Family day without the drama. I said nothing. Days later, still weak and hooked to machines, I saw 92 missed calls and one text from Mom. "We need you. Answer immediately." Without thinking twice, My name is Lauren Hayes. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Because what happens when the family who abandons you at your weakest suddenly realizes you are the one holding everything together? I lay in the hospital bed, the steady beep of the heart monitor mocking the silence in my phone. The bruises on my arms were from IVs, not comfort. The flowers beside me? Sent by coworkers, not blood. My brother's photo replayed in my mind, their smiles wide, plates full, caption cruel. Without the drama. The drama was me, my body failing, my breath shallow, my chest tight. But in their world, drama was inconvenience. And love was conditional. So I stayed quiet. I let them laugh while I healed alone. Until the tide shifted. The 92 calls came first, like a storm battering a locked door. Then the text, sharp, commanding, desperate. "We need you. Answer immediately." I stared at it for a long time, machines tethered to me, my pulse measured in numbers. What could they possibly need now? Money? Paperwork? The stability they had mistaken for permanence. I didn't reply. Instead, I leaned back against the pillow and let my silence grow teeth. Because sometimes revenge doesn't come from rage. Sometimes it comes from refusing to rescue the very people who never showed up for you. That night, as rain streaked the hospital window, I whispered to myself, let them feel absence. Let them taste what they served. And while they scrambled, calling, texting, begging, I held my phone still. I knew one thing with absolute clarity. This story wasn't about collapsing anymore. It was about watching them collapse without me. And when I finally answered, it wouldn't be with mercy. It would be with truth. The calls didn't stop. By morning, the screen lit like a siren, their names flashing again and again.
Dad. Mom.
Unknown numbers. Even my brother, who had mocked me publicly, tried 5 times in a row. I let them ring out. For years, I had been their emergency line, the fixer, the one they leaned on when bills piled up, when legal forms confused them, when the house needed repairs, when emotions spilled over. Lauren will handle it. That was the family mantra. And I had handled it. Every time. Quietly. Lovingly. Desperately hoping it meant I mattered. But the night I collapsed, they didn't come. My body broke under the weight of responsibility, and they called it drama. Now, lying in a hospital bed with tape still bruising my arm, I watched them scramble. At 11:42 a.m., a text appeared from Mom. Lauren, your father's pension paperwork is frozen. We need you. This is urgent. Not are you okay? Not how's your heart? Not we're sorry. Urgency only mattered when it was theirs. My pulse quickened, not from weakness this time, but from clarity. They hadn't just abandoned me. They'd exposed themselves. Their love was a transaction. Their concern, a contract. I closed my eyes, hearing the steady monitor beep. Each sound reminded me I was alive. Barely, but alive. And that meant I had choices. So I made one. I called my lawyer. A man who didn't ask about family dinners, who didn't need photos or captions, only documents. Ms. Hayes, he said calmly, are you sure you want to proceed? Yes, I whispered. Within hours, signatures were filed. Accounts shifted. Access revoked. Every thread they had pulled from me was cut clean. When they called again, I knew what they wanted. Money. Papers. The stability I'd built in silence. And when I finally chose to answer, my voice would be steady, not with apology, but with distance. Because there's a difference between collapsing from exhaustion and letting the ones who drained you finally collapse without your hands to hold them. That truth was still waiting. And I was almost ready to deliver it. By the 3rd day, my strength was returning. I could walk the sterile hallway slowly, for pole in tow, nurses nodding encouragement as I passed. My heart was fragile, but my mind was sharp, sharper than it had been in years. The phone on my tray table buzzed constantly. 92 missed calls had become 137. And then one new text from my brother, the same one who had tagged me in that cruel photo. Look, we messed up. But Dad can't access his pension, Mom's insurance is tangled, and you're the only one who knows how to handle this. Please, just fix it. Fix it. That was always my role, the family's invisible backbone. They mocked me when I needed them, but begged when I wasn't available. I scrolled back to the photo he posted, the whole family laughing around a table, drinks raised, my name buried under the caption, without the drama. Now I imagine those same faces, not glowing with laughter, but twisted with panic. Their fixer was gone. At 3:27 p.m., another text from Mom arrived. Lauren, if you don't help us, we'll lose everything. Please just answer. You can be mad later. Mad later. As though my collapse, my hospital stay, my silence were just phases to push past. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the folder my lawyer had couriered. Inside were the stamped confirmations. My removal as co-signer on their accounts. My resignation from the family trust. Transfer of my savings into a private account under my name only. I held each page like a lifeline. This wasn't vengeance. It was reclamation. That night, the news played softly on the TV in my hospital room. A local business segment highlighted my name, not my family's. Lauren Hayes, financial analyst, announces independent foundation to support patients with medical debt. I smiled faintly. They thought I was their fixer. They never realized I was also the builder. And now, the walls I built for them were gone. They could knock. They could beg. They could call 100 times. But all they would find was a locked door and a woman who finally decided to stop opening it. The true silence was coming. And this time, it would echo louder than their laughter ever did. The silence broke at midnight. My phone lit up again, this time with a string of messages that almost read like confessions, but not quite. Mom, Lauren, please. We should have come. We didn't realize. Brother. You know we love you, right? Things just got out of hand. Dad, call me. This is serious. I stare at the screen, the glow reflecting on the hospital walls. The words looked right, but they felt hollow. Not apologies, just panic dressed up as concern. Because the truth was simple. They weren't sorry for leaving me alone in a hospital bed. They were sorry the foundation they stood on was crumbling without me. The next morning, I was discharged. The nurse wheeled me to the exit where sunlight spilled across the pavement. I breathed it in. The air, the freedom, the new pulse of life I'd almost lost. Waiting outside wasn't my family. It was a black sedan sent by my lawyer. The driver handed me an envelope before opening the door. Inside were the final documents. Notification of separation from the Hayes Family Trust. Official revocation of power of attorney my parents once held over me. Proof that every account now bore one signature only, mine. For the first time, I wasn't tethered to them. I leaned back in the car, watching the hospital fade behind me. My phone buzzed again. This time a voicemail from Mom, her voice shaking. Lauren, the bank froze the accounts. We can't even cover next month's mortgage. We need you. Please don't do this. But I hadn't done this to them. They had done it to themselves. Every time they dismissed my worth, every time they chose laughter over love, appearances over presence. I pressed delete. Because some messages don't deserve to live in memory. As the car pulled up to my apartment, I stepped out carefully, weaker in body but stronger in resolve. I unlocked the door with my own key into a space that finally felt like mine. And for the first time in years, I didn't brace for someone else's weight. My family would keep calling,
Keep begging.
keep trying to stitch their image back together. But they would never understand the truth. The day I collapsed, they abandoned me. And the day they needed me was the day I finally stood. The days that followed felt unreal. My phone buzzed less with medical updates and more with news alerts carrying my own name. Lauren Hayes launches Patient Support Fund. From abandonment to advocacy, one woman stand. Every interview request, Every email of gratitude from strangers, it was proof that my story was bigger than my family's neglect.
But still, the calls came.
My brother left a string of messages, voice cracking in ways I'd never heard before. Please, Lauren. You know I didn't mean it. That post was a joke. Just a joke. We need you to fix this mess. You can't just walk away. A joke. That was how he justified mocking me while I lay hooked to machines. My mother's messages shifted from panic to guilt. How could you humiliate us like this? Everyone is talking. People at church whisper. Do you want to destroy your own family's reputation? Their reputation. Never my well-being. And my father? Silence. Except one text at dawn. This is beneath you. Call me. But I didn't call. Instead, I sat at my desk in the small apartment I had fought to keep, scrolling through messages from strangers, cancer patients, heart patients, widows, single parents, each telling me my story made them feel seen. Their words healed me more than blood ever had. At the grocery store, a woman touched my arm gently. You don't know me, but thank you. You gave voice to people like me. And I realized something profound. My family's absence had created a space wide enough for the world to walk into. One night, I opened the group chat again. The last messages stared back like carved stone. We have dinner plans. Don't be dramatic. No worries. I could have left, deleted, closed the chapter. Instead, I typed 3 new words. I heard you. Then I muted the chat, permanently, because I didn't need their replies anymore. The next morning, the nonprofit sent me the final paperwork, my name listed as founder, sole trustee, sole voice. While my family clawed at locked doors, I was opening new ones for strangers. And I knew, deep in my healing chest, the truest revenge was never silence. It was building something so unshakable, they would have to watch it grow without them. The foundation's first event was small, a hospital auditorium filled with folding chairs and faces that carried the same quiet loneliness I once knew. Patients recovering from surgeries, families of the forgotten, nurses who had stayed when relatives didn't. I stood at the podium, my heart steady now, a faint scar hidden beneath my blouse. I collapsed once, I began, and the people I loved most weren't there. But strangers were. Nurses were. And that taught me something. Sometimes family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shows up. Applause rippled, soft but real. Later, as I shook hands and listened to stories, a volunteer whispered, "Your family must be so proud." I didn't answer. Pride wasn't what they felt.
Panic, maybe.
Shame, certainly. But never pride. Because while the event filled the hall with light, they sat in their house with curtains drawn, reputation collapsing like sandcastles in rain. That evening, another text came from Mom. "We can't pay the lawyer without your help. Please, Lauren, don't do this. You're tearing us apart." I laughed softly, not in cruelty, but in disbelief. They were already apart. My absence hadn't fractured them, it had revealed their fractures. At 9 p.m., the local news covered my event. The segment ended with the anchor saying, "Lauren Hayes reminds us all, love is proven in presence." The camera cut to applause, to faces beaming. And in that moment, somewhere across town, my family was watching the same screen. For once, they couldn't change the channel fast enough to escape me. I didn't need to gloat. I didn't need revenge in the way they expected. Because true justice isn't about punishing. It's about living in a light so bright that those who abandoned you are forced to squint. And as I lay in bed that night, the silence of their unanswered calls felt less like absence and more like freedom. Still, one final act remained, a closing scene they would never forget. Not in a hospital, not in a courtroom, but on a stage they valued more than anything else, the annual family reunion. And this time the headline would be mine. The annual family reunion was their crown jewel, the event that polished their image every year. Dozens of relatives gathered under rented tents, catered meals laid across white tablecloths, laughter rehearsed like theater. For years, I had been their silent prop, the one who arranged the chairs, signed the checks, kept the peace. This year, they hadn't invited me. But my name was already on the roster. Lauren Hayes, founder, Patient Support Fund. A cousin on the planning committee had quietly kept me on the program, slipping my name where they couldn't erase it. When I arrived, whispers surged through the crowd. My mother's face drained of color. My brother froze, plastic smile faltering mid-greeting. My father clenched his jaw, fingers tightening around his glass. The host tapped the microphone. And now, a few words from Lauren Hayes. I walked to the front, no fanfare, no theatrics. Just steady footsteps, my heart calm in a way it had never been before. I was supposed to be here last year. I began. But I wasn't, because when I collapsed, the people in this room never showed up. I asked for company in surgery, and the reply was, "Don't be dramatic." Gasps broke, the hum of chatter. Eyes turned to my family's table, where my mother stared at the floor, my brother shifted in his chair, my father's face hardened to stone. But here's what I learned. I continued. Family isn't about photos or perfect dinners. Family is presence. Family is care. And when blood failed me, strangers stepped in. That's why today, I stand not as your fixer, not as your forgotten daughter, but as the founder of something bigger, a fund that ensures no one faces surgery alone again. Applause erupted, raw and uncoached. Relatives I barely knew stood, clapping with tears in their eyes. Cameras from the local press snapped photos. Behind me, the banner of the reunion swayed in the summer wind. For once, my name didn't sit in the shadows of theirs. It stood on its own. I didn't look back at my family's table. I didn't need to, because the sound of applause rising around me was louder than their silence had ever been. And I knew the finale was ready. It would not be rage. It would not be punishment. It would be closure. And they would have no choice but to watch it unfold. The reunion ended the way none of them expected. When the applause faded, I didn't leave in anger. I stayed. I walked among cousins and distant relatives who embraced me, some whispering, "We had no idea. We're proud of you." Others slipped small donations into the fund jar, smiles trembling with sincerity. My family sat at their table, untouched plates before them. For once, no one rushed to join them. No cameras turned their way. The pedestal was gone. Later, as the sun dipped low and lanterns lit the field, the host closed the evening with one final announcement. This year's reunion is dedicated to Lauren Hayes, whose story reminded us all what true family means. Applause again. My name echoed against the tent walls. I glanced once, just once, at my parents and brother. Their faces were a portrait of silence, lips pressed thin, eyes hollow with the realization that the audience they once owned now belonged elsewhere. But I didn't gloat. I didn't point. I simply smiled, thanked the crowd, and walked away, lantern light catching the scar on my chest, proof of survival, not shame. That night, back home, I muted the family group chat for the final time. No goodbye, no dramatic exit.
Just stillness.
Because my revenge was never about shouting. It was about living in a way that proved their absence could never define me. They left me alone in a hospital bed. The world stood up in their place. And now, everywhere I walked, their neglect had become my platform, their silence my amplifier. I didn't collapse anymore. I stood taller than I ever had. And while they wrestled with whispers, empty invitations, and the weight